the karate black belt, especially in America, has become something that is, it feels a little less than what it used to. Whether that be because of misinformation for people who see karate from the outside world, whether that be through people who document everything and honestly probably shouldn't be, or maybe shouldn't even be teaching at all. I would love to get your opinion on what qualifies someone to be a sensei, or even a black belt in general. I would be curious to hear that.
Black belt doesn't mean shit to me. It doesn't mean nada, zero.
Yeah.
We wear pink belts at my seminar, the Karate Nerd experience, because I couldn't care less. And you could be wearing a clown costume for all I care. We're just going to be practicing karate. Doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, where you're from, nada, all right? And the term sensei it's a term of honor. You only say it to others. You never call yourself a sensei, which is an American thing. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
No, like I mentioned, nobody calls me Sensei Seth in real life. It became a brand for me where my name is now associated with karate in some way, and that was my goal.
Right, but it is not associated with the black belt originally. It is not associated with a specific level. That's different. That's titles like Hanshi, Renshi, Kyoshi, Soke, and so on. Those are usually connected to belts, and you can say those about yourself because that's a title. It's not an honorific, right? Which is a different thing. So sensei is something different, and I don't think it should be connected to belts, but obviously to make karate more understandable to Westerners, you usually say that when you're a black belt, you can become a sensei and so forth. So basically that's the historical perspective.
I love it. That's cool.
And also, usually in a traditional dojo, there is only one sensei, just like there can only be one sun on the sky. There cannot be two. And everyone else are senpai.
Senpai, sure.
Yeah, right.
Very cool. That's awesome. So to go into kind of the same route-ish, belts and the belt system for you. What does the belt system mean for you?
Nothing.
Do you still use the belt system?
Of your own school, it means nothing.
Sure.
It is a way for you to categorize your students based on your curriculum so that you can be pedagogical in your teaching and have all the green belts over there, all the blue belts over there, all the yellow belts over there, divide them into groups, assign them senpai instructors, and then start teaching class according to each person's needs and experience, right?
Right, yeah. No, I agree.
Then outside of that system or that context, you can't compare a blue belt in one school to a blue belt in another school, which is why it's so silly when people always ask people what belts they are, because it doesn't mean anything outside of your dojo.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's one of the things that karate gets a lot of flack for, and Taekwondo especially. So like the belt system in Brazilian Jiu-jitsu is like way more
they managed to keep it pretty tight.
Yeah, right. And I think that's because in the beginning they were like, okay, let's have every belt mean exactly the same thing for the entire organization, where I don't think karate didn't necessarily start off as a really well communicated art.
Exactly.
Where it would make more sense that it depends more on what your school is and what you're learning rather than where you compete among other people, which is something that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has going for it, which is cool.
Yeah.
Somebody, I have a running joke where I call Taekwondo safe space karate. So somebody commented that. But people talk a lot about, especially in the States, how you can buy like a 3-year Taekwondo black belt. And I do give Taekwondo a lot of flack. But to be fair, the belt system is so much easily progressed through because how dare you? Because in my opinion, there's less to learn. They focus way harder on a few specific things rather than like when you go really wide-based karate where you've got tons of stuff. You got takedowns, you got one-steps, whatever it is you're learning, katas, everything like that. It was Seth's joke, Ryan. Yeah, pin it on me.
So in some ways, yeah, you're right. But yeah, I mean, I've always practiced all kinds of martial arts, not necessarily to get better at those martial arts, but to see what I could learn and bring back to my art. And we've always been very open about that in our school because it's a martial arts center. We got like a dozen different martial arts.
Sure.
So from a very young age, I was exposed to a wide variety of martial arts, which gave me a great appreciation for how we're all connected. And even though I call myself the karate nerd because that's my chosen path, I love learning from all arts because at the top of that mountain, the higher you climb, the more we all have in common, right?
Right.
It's only when you stand at the bottom that all the paths look very distant from each other, but they come together at the top. Like Bruce Lee said, there is only one moon to be seen when you reach that summit.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. So no, it's the same thing. We're like, we have one body. The way we move it is like inches, if not less, different in all these different styles. It's crazy to think like some of the strategies are different, everything like that, but they can so easily be implemented and moved around and manipulated to look like exactly the same thing. And I think that's kind of what we get after you start training for a while is like you find how your body moves, not necessarily how a specific style is trying to manipulate it to. Manipulate's a weird word, but yeah.
But like the arm only bends this way, right? I mean, we got 2 arms and 2 legs, right? Unless you're an alien or something. I mean, we're pretty much all limited or governed by the basic biomechanical principles of anatomy. Sure. And it's all about using our strengths and our weaknesses to basically tailor our martial art around ourselves. Now, your starting point is not as important as what you make it into. It's not what you do, but how you do it.
Yeah, I agree. Yo, what a crossover, epic sensei crossover. I agree. I love it. I wanted to make sure that I could bring you guys something cool for your, what's today? Thursday? Yeah, your Thursday. Let's see.
This quarantine thing has me mixing up all days.
I had to fall asleep early last night so I could make sure I got up early, and it's noon.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's been rough. So, Mr. Jesse, sir, one of the frequently asked questions that I got on here was, what is your nutrition like? Because obviously you've touched on it in videos and stuff like that, but you train a lot. What's your nutrition like?
Paleo.
Okay.
Yeah, I just try to eat as clean as possible. Avoid all the junk food. Avoid the 3 big categories of white stuff, which basically is dairy and sugar and wheat-based stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's what works for me.
Yeah.
But I think that you should find what works for you, because whenever you start talking about food or diet or vegans or whatever, then it's like religion, right?
Yeah.
I'm right, you're wrong, basically.
Yeah, right.
That's how people view it. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that paleo is what works for me. Now, obviously, I'm not a caveman. I can't eat exactly like that diet says you should, but I do my best to kind of use those guidelines to eat as natural and unprocessed as possible. So I eat a lot of, basically everything I eat is organic or grass-fed or, stuff like that.
Yeah, you make it your mix. You make it work to the best of your abilities. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're kind of going to move along here. One of my better performing YouTube videos has been on the idea of kata. And obviously you're a big kata guy.
So what was that video about?
So for me, my kata video, obviously I've had the conversation with Mike and other people where like, I feel like I constantly have to defend kata. And my kata reasoning is kind of a lot like you mentioned before. I love the body mechanics of it. For me, while I don't necessarily go into the bunkai as much as you do, just because I haven't been able to train with somebody who does particularly bunkai more often, when I do see bunkai, it's in a little bit I get to train with my father, or it's through people online. For me, I love teaching kids kata especially, because the bunkai is so good, the kata itself is so good for understanding body movement, understanding good stability, good balance, things like that. But I'd love to know why you train kata.
Because I just started hurting myself when I did full contact fighting. So I was like, I'm just going to kick and punch thin air from now on. Because it doesn't kick or punch back.
That's true.